Is philosophy an enemy to Islam? As an Algerian living in a Muslim society, I noticed something that happens every time we mention the topic of philosophy. I can already feel the prejudice, the hidden judgments behind people's eyes before they even speak a word. And that feeling is not random because in our society, it is very popular to believe that philosophy is something that is against Islam, something that turns you into an atheist. So, in other words, people say that philosophy is an enemy to Islam. But is this true? You see, the first mistake that our society is making, which is probably the biggest one, is that we are not defining what philosophy is. You see people saying philosophy this, philosophy that, but if you ask the same persons to just simply and clearly define what philosophy means, they just freeze. So imagine listening to people who don't even understand what they are talking about, using a word or a term that you don't fully understand harms not just the person who listens to you, but also yourself. You talk because you want to communicate, and communicating means that you want to transmit the ideas that are in your head to the other person. But if you use a word that you don't understand in your communication, you might be referring to something, but the person next to you will think that you're referring to something else. And that doesn't only make you fail at communicating, but it also might make you defend the very thing that you are against. So, in order to discuss the topic of philosophy, let's first define what philosophy means. So, from the moment a baby is born, he starts to live experiences in different environments with different people, hearing, seeing, feeling, and smelling also different things. And all those experiences make him develop and build beliefs. Using those experiences, he assumes what is right and what is wrong. And when you gather all his beliefs and fuse them into one single thing, that thing is philosophy, his philosophy. So, simply put, a philosophy is a point of view, a perspective that someone has on life and every topic related to it. A philosophy that he built after observing the environment and the nature around him. And philosophy is called the mother of all sciences for a reason, because in all sciences we do the same thing that is the definition of philosophy, which is to observe the nature and the events that happen around you to build beliefs. Just like how in biology we observe what happens inside living creatures to build a solid scientific information. So, philosophy is the mother of all sciences because it is about observing the reality around you, and those sciences that come from it are about observing something specific, like how we saw that in biology we observe the living creatures. So, for now, does philosophy sound like an enemy to Islam? Does it sound like something that can harm our religion and our faith? It doesn't. And for fact, it actually sounds like something that Allah Himself actually commanded us to do, which is referred to in Islam as tadabbur. At-tadabbur is an Arabic word that means to observe, to contemplate. But contemplating what? Allah commanded us to contemplate the Quran and also the nature around us and the elements that we can find in nature and also the elements that we can find in the Quran are referred to as ayat. Ayat is the plural of ayah, which means verse. So when we say a verse or many verses, we're not just talking about the verses in the Quran. We're also talking about verses in the nature around us. For example, the trees, or the mountains, or the sky, or the sun. They are all elements of our reality that Allah commanded us to observe and contemplate. So, from this, we understand that philosophy is literally our duty. And from this, we understand that philosophy is literally our duty as human beings. So it doesn't sound like something evil, but there's an important detail that we have to mention. A philosophy, no matter how sophisticated it sounds, comes from a human mind. And a human being is limited in the things he can perceive, in the things he can understand and comprehend, which means that everything that comes out of our mind, every belief, every philosophy, is not going to be complete. It will be imperfect because the mind itself that produced it is imperfect. We build our philosophies based on our past experiences, and every person lived a different experience, which means that every single person will give you their own philosophy, their own version of what is right and what is wrong. So the question that you ask yourself is, who am I going to follow? And if we ask a more realistic question, who are you, so that I live my entire life according to your philosophy and not someone else's philosophy? We become lost because we realize that nobody's really worthy of us following their philosophy. And that's when Islam comes in. Allah sent us His heavenly messages, where He tells us what is right and what is wrong. But here, it's not the philosophy of a limited human brain. It's the ultimate truth coming from the Creator of everything Himself. It's not some person giving his point of view. Here, it's the one who created everything telling us what is right to do and what is wrong to do. And not just that, but also giving us facts about the universe and informations and knowledge that human beings could never have gained alone. In Islam, we follow the Quran, which we believe to be the words of Allah, in addition to the Sunnah, which is the words, the actions, and the decisions that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made according to what Allah told him to do. What Allah communicated to us through the Quran and His Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, are a guidance for humanity. Without it, humans would just try to figure out the truth alone, like we said, by observing with their limited perception and trying to understand things with their limited human brain. So it's crucial to have Islam as the beginning of your intellectual journey. Allah gave us a lot of truths and informations in the Quran and Sunnah, But he left a lot of things that we can discover, and that is through ijtihad, which means in Arabic, making efforts. So, as you start to build your philosophies, you always compare your ideas with what is in the Quran and the Sunnah. If your philosophy goes against it, then you have to correct it. Like Sherlock Holmes said, we have to twist our theories so that they fit the truth and not the other way around. In conclusion, we understand that you need Islam as your compass and as your guide for this intellectual journey, which is about observing the nature around you and trying to do your best to discover new things. And look at how the popular and famous philosophers who were not part of a certain religion were always into an existential crisis, thinking that life is only suffering and that there is no heaven and that there is no life after death, and countless other philosophies that form in the mind of a person who does not have a religion as his compass and who is in result lost in this vast universe. So, is philosophy an enemy to Islam? Not at all. Philosophy is an important part of every human being's life. It is our duty to use the brain Allah gifted us to explore His fascinating creation and become more aware of His greatness. That's all I had to say. Take care and Assalamu alaikum.